Hey everyone, welcome back to Canton Insiders, the quick podcast series brought to you by Catholics by Intellect.eu, where we go inside the Canton Network and talk to the people and builders actually operating on it. Today I have with me Kelly. He's the CEO and founder of Chata.ai, the team behind the Think Insights, which is proactive analytics platform built specifically for Canton Network. And if you are a validator or running any kind of operations on the network and you are not watching your rewards or fees in real time, this episode might be right for you. So, Kelly, welcome.
Yeah, thanks. Great to be on your show here. It's I've seen a few episodes before, and it's great. So looking forward to it.
Thank you. Happy to contribute and bring more awareness about the builders and insiders on the canton. So to start with, not about the Think Insights, but about your company Shata. It was built, yeah, I believe well before the canton. So maybe you can tell us the brief story, the origin of Chata, and how did you end up in blockchain analytics space at the
Yeah,
end?
yeah, that's a good question. So I finished my master's in 2007. I'd focused on mathematics, derivatives, those types of focus areas, and was going to go into investment banking. Someone in my program had said, "Hey, there's a new seed fund starting out of the university that I went to, and you're able to invest and help grow companies." So I thought, well, that sounds pretty interesting. Got that going. What we ended up building out of that was there's four of us who founded it. We built up Circle Cardiovascular Imaging was the name of the company. It was a computer vision AI company. So I've been in AI since 2008 basically. Again, it was more focused on medical cardiovascular images, all those things. We grew the company, and as part of that growth phase, as everyone knows who's grown a company, you have lots of pains that come with that. And so we ended up getting acquired by Thoma Bravo, which was great for the employees, shareholders, everything else like that. But there was still something during that process where our organization, executives, operators, everybody else really struggled with data, right? We had Salesforce, we had business intelligence tools, we had a bunch of other access to data, but we were so dependent on people to the point where we were starting to teach some of the business people how to write SQL just to get data out of the database. So what kind of the idea that I had at that standpoint was, well, hey, there's some very interesting advances in computer vision AI that I think may be applicable in the natural language processing space, combined with some of the more recent computational linguistics literature as well. So connected with a kind of a longtime friend and our CTO now, Reg Willett, who's worked with billions and billions and billions of rows of data coming in every day. And we thought, okay, well, we can probably build this out and execute on it. So we started the company there. We've been through multiple iterations of technology to the point where we're at now, where we provide an interface and a platform that allows people to access data, really industry agnostic, right? So we've worked Nike was our first big customer. We've worked with airline data, casino data, asset management data, financial markets data, like you name it, really across the board. And then we ended up creating Sync Insights to focus on this DeFi space, and especially that mix between TradFi and DeFi.
So you basically could plug in your technology to any data source and any blockchain. And I'm wondering what made you to build on Canton specifically, why this was like a right choice for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we first heard about Canton through a relationship with Seven Ridge Limited. So
Hmm.
they operate through C7 on the network. One of the super validators, I believe one of the founders of the network as well, and had heard about it, learned about it, and we were already working in the traditional finance space. So I started reading some of the papers, read the original white paper, read more about the space in general, and that real privacy component was quite a critical part because when we were in the TradFi space, one of the most important parts of the platform we had to build was to deploy the language models and deploy the services into the environment of the customer because of that privacy factor. Because there's liability if you don't have that, right? For us and Canton and being in the early days and being able to try add value from that standpoint, that's where we really wanted to focus a lot of efforts, and why we created the Sync Insights, a subsidiary.
Makes sense totally. Yeah, can we, for everyone watching, whether they are only deciding whether to join Canton or whether they're already running validators, super validators, can we have a look of what Sync Insights can offer them?
You see that okay?
Yeah, I can
Perfect.
see a lot of data.
Yeah. There's lots of data, and like one of the core components is you'll see this little data messenger window here. The core thing is all of these experiences, all of this code you see here, we actually make that available on GitHub. The core of the platform is actually, and a lot of the IP we've built is around connecting to a data source and then automatically training a language model specifically for the unique structure and business logic of that database. That's what the platform does. These front end components you see here, it can be embedded in an application. So if there's another app builder who has a lot of data that they want to don't not build a comprehensive reporting experience because it's just a lot of extra effort and they got a lot of other things to do, those are perfect partners for us, right? And so what we ended up doing is we just took all of the different widgets that we had and we put it into an interface, this web page here, which is Sync Insights. So all of these tiles are actually built through a natural language query. They're not SQL, they're not anything like that. The natural language query translates to the SQL, which then executes the query. So, I mean, this is pretty standard stuff on the general page. You find that in lots of explorers as well. And there's some really good explorers on the network. These are built to look at burn mint equilibrium transactions. So this is more of like a network view from here. The TPS by provider is really a big one. This is kind of, how many transactions per second averaged over an hour do each of the different providers make up, which is both, of course, markers and then the feature transfers as well. There's data on resource usage and purchasing. This is global data, so at any time you'll see all of the purchases of people. But one of the big use cases for the system is because they can do it through natural language, they can then build their own custom experiences for their own wallets or their own validators or their own apps or whatever it is. And that's the beauty of it, is people can customize whatever they want to. They don't have to then go request to the person who built the analytics application to say, hey, I would like to see this now, or go through really a complex set of drop-down menus and those things to really build your own experiences. So you have the ability to see those, at any particular time. Probably one of the more used areas is around just seeing the featured CC transfers, who's doing what at what point in time. The markers as well is really another one. And again, you can filter through all those, how many app coupons are generated from that activity, and then kind of summaries over the time as well. So we found a lot of people in the industry are kind of used to dashboards, so it's a good way to start them into the analytics experience. And then they can continue on from that standpoint. A lot of people care about rewards. We also show the unclaimed rewards, which is just, of course, when the super validators meet some of their criteria and they get issued those rewards. But if we take those out and even the total SVs, you start getting an idea about what that inflation curve looks like, right? And you'll see sync fees are volatile a little bit, but they actually have been increasing over time, which is really the trend that everybody wants for sure. And then you could take a look at organizations, what they earn, the different parts. So this is kind of the overview of what people see. So what's really happening behind the scenes is the query goes in, within a second it generates the database query, then database query executes and returns the information from here. Then you get the provider, who the sender was, all those pieces, any fees associated with it, amount sent. You can see there's 1853. If you want to kind of get an idea of the histogram of those types, you can take a look there. You can really visualize it a lot of different ways. There's one big use case that's been happening actually is around the really understanding which wallets are working with which wallets as well, how many records are being sent. So in this particular wallet case, you'll see there's 1,750 total records in this, which is quite substantial, of course, and the rest are kind of one. So that's where you can see, okay, well, this is blue, that's sender receiver, and people just get a better idea of the dynamics going on in the network. Or if it's their own transactions, the offices of the CFO have a much easier time going into the system to, trace some of the movements as well, right? So again, this is on the public data side, but you can think about all of these pieces as that will be available on the private ledger side as well, plus a bunch of other pieces as well. This is the last thing I'll show you, and this is probably the most important thing because we all are too busy to be checking in on dashboards all the time. So one of the most powerful features is the ability to set up these alerts through natural language, where you can set up a worker to monitor data for you or to do scheduled report analytics. If you want to look at the end of every day on Friday, what you've earned and everything else, all of that stuff can be automated. And then it gets either delivered to your phone or delivered via this notification interface as well, right? So this could be the largest transfers. I have this running every 24 hours. So you can see, who's moving the biggest values. There's CEX transfers as well. And at the same time, you can look when the rounds are have been the better ones to mint, and the other ones where the bandwidth activity was the lowest as well. But you can also set them up for your own personal wallet experiences and all those pieces as well. So it's quite robust. I will say 60% of it is really being utilized right now, but there's another 40% that some more of the power users are really starting to get into and really automate a lot of their reporting workflows.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Canton is built around sub-transaction privacy. Yeah, participants only see the data they are part of. Some data is available publicly, some privately. Did you face any challenges building this solution for Canton Network? And if yes, what was the biggest challenge?
Yeah, not really. This was probably parsing. When we started parsing some of the bulk scan API logic was interesting because the documentation, I think, was still not fully completed the way that everybody wanted from there. So that took a little bit of learning as well on our side. That was probably the most difficult part. I mean, this is all the bulk scan API, and then there's some other information from like the verdict and everything else like that. But for the most part, this is all the public data. We haven't launched it yet, but there's a private ledger solution as well. That's going to be effectively the similar experience you can utilize here. And, that's where, of course, with the privacy, a lot of the real important information exists from that standpoint. We'll also expose the data as well through interfaces that agents can interact with. So if you're building your own experiences, your own third-party agents or third-party agent developers, there'll be lots of interactions with the data, but in a way that most importantly is compliant. And then, of course, provides determinism as well. And that's one of the key things. Like we're, with the inference, we leverage some large language model capabilities in some of the workflows, but really the core of the system is a deterministic AI, right? It's built on what's called compositional learning, which is, it's not an LLM generated thing. So that's a really unique advantage for us in the space because you get the same answer every time. So if you're a bank, you don't have to worry about getting sued because the data coming back is incorrect and you're making decisions on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And who is it designed for? Who gets the most value out of Cynic Insights?
Yeah, right now I will say the users. I'll just stop sharing my screen here again so we can talk. I would say the biggest group initially was just the validator node operators. You're right, just they have to do reporting for some of the people they're hosting as well. They want to set up easy dashboards for them. They don't want to have to manually answer data requests. That's kind of where it started. Then as more of the app development started happening, people wanted to be able to track app development a lot quicker, better, faster, and not just calling kind of the scan API just to get a current balance every day. I'm talking like transactional level data. And that's one of the big things. We take all of the transactions that come in and we create the balances and everything else from the bottom up. So we're not just querying the balance API, we're actually calculating from the transactional level all of the way up. And what that allows us to do is every time you have a sync fee purchase or there's a transfer value, whatever it is, we can do the USD translation at that point in time. Now for financial reporting purposes, You don't have to go back in time and try to average out what the Canton coin to USD conversion was every day and have an assumption of how much USD you earned. You actually have an exact amount of USD you've earned. And then at the end of the month or quarter, when you have to report, you now have your unrealized gains and losses automatically calculated for you, and you don't have to spend that extra time as a financial team to try calculate all of that stuff out.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, how do you keep this updated with all the Canton evolution and developments, new proposal, new reward structure? I think even our product, like the Catalyx blockchain manager, it's affecting, and for some of the releases, we need to do a lot of work to match the Canton evolution and updates. And I bet with data, it's might be even a harder job.
Yeah, I'll say this. I will say it's very difficult, as you know. We have some really good relationships with some of the other app companies, especially some of the other ones doing data. And I think there's a good information sharing going on there as well. So I think that's been helpful. But yeah, we have to stay on top of it. I think again, as kind of a true blue entrepreneur, it is difficult with the speed of evolution and the speed of innovation the Canton Network has, but that is a huge advantage in my opinion. So I think our stance is, we're more than fine with how fast things are moving, and with digital asset coming out with new things here or there. Some of the changes in governance is a little bit tricky for sure, but just the upgrades to the network and everything else, it's all going in the right direction to make the network better.
It's cool. Thank you for the insights.
Mhm.
Maybe a small question before we finalize it. How easy is it to connect the validator or super validator to sync insights?
Yeah, so in the past, what we had was a subscriber application that would get deployed at the validator node level. That's for security and a couple other reasons as well, because then the validator itself is in control of creating subscriptions. If you create a subscriptions, it has to be like a unique person. You can't just kind of blindly create those things. We monitor, logging in, logging out, all those types of things to make sure we don't have kind of the, call it the fictitious users in there. So that's how things traditionally work. We're going to be launching something soon where it's going to be a lot easier than that. We'll manage the subscriptions through a universal subscriber that people can come into, and then it will just handle the interactions with the validator node for the kind of subscription fees at that standpoint. But it's quite simple to install. I mean, at IEU done many installs, and I think we're getting pretty close to getting what we need done to be available through Catalyst as well, which is a great platform, by the way. Congratulations on that, because that's it's just a lot easier. I think if we're a new builder coming on, or we're a new bank coming on now, something like that would have made things much easier than in the past. So, but you talk to most of the node operators installing us for their customers or them doing it themselves. It's a pretty standard install package.
Yeah, I would agree, and we use it as well, Sync Insights. So yeah, guys, the journey on the Canton. If you wanna join, you can spin up validator or super validator with us with Intellective and Catalyx blockchain manager. And if you want to actually check the data and understand the performance, you can easily plug in the Sync Insight. So this is kind of the combo.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll mention, which is going to be a key thing in the future, because if we look into the future, you have private data, then you also have institutional data as well. That is not chain, it's not on-chain data. It might be TradFi data, everything else, but those institutions need that information working together. That is one of our specialties in the platform specialty, to allow those alerts to be able to trigger in different spots, and then have that data work together synergistically to be like, okay, this happened here, this happened here. If both of those things happened, I need to create this type of an alert. So that multi-federated data approach is really what we're excited about at this space, because if we can help bridge that gap quicker, then some of the financial institutions will feel more comfortable adopting a lot of the new blockchain technologies faster because they can have all the information working together. It's auditable and all of those really important pieces for compliance.
Smart, smart. That sounds smart. Anything else, like looking at the vision for Sync Insights from the Shadow's point of view, anything else that we can expect in the nearest future from you guys?
Yeah, we're without going into too much detail, we are very concerned with some of the other chains and how fast they're moving to agentic development. People are focused on security right now, but there is a whole host of other problems that exist there. So, using our team's experience and expertise in AI, agentic development, those types of pieces, we will definitely be working in that space as well to ensure that people are being protected properly, right? Because an agent for me, it might be okay through my policies that that agent can work in a certain way, but for you, that agent isn't allowed to do that stuff. Well, for the
Yeah.
developer of the agent, that's a very difficult problem, right? So there's those pieces. And then we're also going to be launching another additional analytics layer where once you've queried data, you can actually have another system take a look, analyze that data, use our deterministic AI, basically control our deterministic AI to go query more data, calculate more data, and then basically come up with an analysis.
Okay, that sounds crazy. I think there might be another episode coming up in the future when this is live.
Oh, yeah.
But for everyone listening, this was Kelly for Canton Insiders with really cool insights from himself and from the Sync Insights. And yeah, I think a lot of the people in the Canton ecosystem, whether they are already operating on it or just joining, they just don't realize how much visibility they're missing into their own data. And Sync Insights kind of fix that and bring this in one intuitive, easy to use platform. As I mentioned, the perfect combo for everyone willing to join the Canton is to spin up the validator. For this, you can use the Catalyx blockchain manager, and as a combo, the data layer can be covered by Sync Insights. So that is it for the second episode of Canton Insiders. Yeah, follow up for more. Thank you, Kelly, for joining me.
Yeah, thank you. Really appreciate it.